Hey everybody, welcome to the Monday Mentoring live stream here on the Dev Mentor Dave channel. I am Dev Mentor Dave Welch, and looking forward to our discussion this evening, talking about boot camps. Not like the Army boot camp or the Marines or anything like that. This is a different type of boot camp. So if you've not been involved in the development world before, in the software development or the web development world, you may not be familiar with this terminology, but we're going to dive into that here this evening and kind of take a look at this world of development coding boot camps and see what is the good, the bad, and maybe the ugly too of it as well. So hope you guys are ready and eager to learn more about boot camps and see if this is the right fit for you. As always, if you are interested in joining in the conversation, just feel free to chat here in the live chat. I'll be keeping an eye on that and see if anybody has any questions, or if you disagree with me, that's fine too. Or if you just have something that you think would help benefit others in this conversation, certainly feel free to chime in via the live chat, and I'll try to make sure I get that information in here and respond to that as well. Because really, that's the goal for the Monday mentoring. It's not necessarily for me to just sit here and talk for a very long time. Of course, it's been that way from the beginning here till we hopefully get some people to watch live and to join in with us and to participate, because that's really what I would like to do. I'd like for Mentoring Mondays to be more about participating, more about interacting with people. I can always create videos on these topics if I want to, but really this is for you, for junior devs who are either looking to get into coding, or who are already, maybe they've already gone to a boot camp, or maybe you already have your first job and you're just trying to find some help because you're just feeling a little bit lost. You're not sure exactly where to turn for answers to a lot of questions that you have, and maybe you don't even know what the right questions are to be asking yet. And so I want to help you find those answers, and in some cases find those questions, so that you know exactly what you need to do to move from just learning how to write code to really pursuing a successful career. Because really that's the goal, right? We want to have success. We don't want to just keep struggling our whole career here in the development world. In fact, that's one of the reasons why junior developers often don't last very long, is because they get kind of stuck in the rut of struggle and trying to learn things, and they end up giving up. And so my goal is to try to make it to where it's harder for you to give up, because you have more information, you have more knowledge going into the process, and you have some place to turn to ask questions and to get help and to get some advice. For those of you who don't know me, I've been a developer. I've been doing development since before the turn of the century. 1999 is when I wrote my first line of code, but I've been doing it professionally for over a decade, both as a freelancer as well as working for different companies as well. So my favorite part of being a developer, though, is actually mentoring other developers, and I've had the opportunity to do that both in classes, to teaching basic HTML, CSS, JavaScript, things like that. I've had the opportunity to do that one-on-one with different developers, junior developers, some that have done their own training, some that have come in from a boot camp, like we're going to talk about tonight. So this is really what I enjoy. This is my biggest passion, is helping junior developers really actually bridge that gap, find the things that they need to find and understand and learn in order to move from just knowing how to write some code and following tutorials to actually being successful and putting all these things together to achieve success in the development world, to move away from that junior developer term. And as you hopefully know, if you've watched some of the other live streams, you'll know that we just started a new section, which we're going to try to do both in the live stream as well as using separate videos for these as we get more and more questions. But we've got kind of a Hey Dev Mentor Dave or Hey DMD section. And so that's really what's spurring on the conversation this morning. So we have a question here that was sent in anonymously. It says, Dev Mentor Dave, I'm thinking about becoming a developer. Should I join a local or online boot camp, or should I just try to learn on my own? All right, so that's a very valid question, and one probably a lot of junior developers have, one that people who are just trying to get into, just interested in the prospect of becoming a developer. That's that question. Where do I go? Where do I start? And if you've done any research, then you're going to find that there are a lot of these things called boot camps. All right, so there's lots of these boot camps around, and so this is a very valid question. You know, should I do that? Is that the best route for me to go down, or is there something different that I should be doing? And so we're going to talk about that tonight. We're going to talk about boot camps and whether they're good or bad. Or ugly, or maybe a mixture of both, and maybe my opinion on what might be the best way to use them if you do choose to use them. And we'll maybe even take a look at some of their websites and just kind of walk through and talk through some different things about those as well. So hopefully this will be informative to you and enjoyable at the same time. And so we'll dive in here. Again, if you have any questions, certainly feel free to put them in the live chat. If you're watching this afterwards, please feel free to leave a comment on the video on the live stream and ask questions there as well. I see all those comments and I try to read through all of them, and I've gotten more recently. Thankfully, we haven't increased the subscriber number a whole lot. We finally hit 25 last week. Now we're at 29 subscribers, so we haven't really increased that a whole lot, but we have certainly increased the number of views as I'm starting to get some more videos out. So if you haven't seen some of the newer videos that I posted last week, there are a couple of them. Take a look at those. They should be right there on the homepage of the Dev Mentor Dave channel. Speaking of subscriptions, if you're watching this and you're not subscribed, if you would, please subscribe. It just helps the channel out. And if you would click the bell icon, you'll be notified when I do post other videos. My goal is to post videos every Wednesday and Friday mornings, and that's what I'm trying to work for. Maybe someday more than that, but I'm trying to get at least 2 videos out a week just to try to build up some content for you guys and be helpful to you as we go here. So that's just kind of a wrap up on where we're at with Dev Mentor Dave YouTube channel. Again, thank you for being here. We're going to jump into the conversation. Again, if you have questions, feedback, opinions, certainly feel free to leave those in the chat or in the comment section as we go or after you're watching this. Okay, so if you know anything about me, then you know that I am not somebody who has gone through a boot camp. So as we're talking about this subject of boot camp pros and cons, you might be wondering, David, why are you the one talking about this? Because if you've never experienced something, it seems like it's probably not wise to talk about, right? Well, it's true that I've not experienced being a part of a boot camp. That's not how I learned. In fact, boot camps really weren't around when I started learning to write code. So I didn't get to experience this cool phenomenon that's taking the world by storm currently when it comes to putting out new developers into our ecosystem here. But I did actually get the chance to teach a boot camp. I've only done one, and so obviously there's some things that you always learn something from the first one that you do, and but I will say I actually got some pretty good feedback from those who took the class. So I think I have at least some experience here to talk about the process of a boot camp, to talk about the pros and cons of a boot camp. And so, but not only have I taught a boot camp before, and I've also taught some other online courses as well when it comes to writing code and doing other things like WordPress design and things like that. But I've also mentored junior devs who have come out of boot camps. So I not only have experience teaching the boot camps, but I also have experience working with those who have gone through it. And I've heard a lot of the positive things about boot camps, and I've heard some negative things about boot camps, and I've been able to kind of collate a lot of that information working with other junior devs and getting ideas from them as far as what might be better ways to do boot camps or better ways to integrate boot camps into your learning process. So really what I'm going to talk about is both an amalgamation of my experience teaching and of their experience learning and being a part of those boot camps. So you might be asking yourself, or me, what exactly is a coding boot camp? And this is kind of important because if this is our topic, right? We need to understand what it is we're actually discussing. So a boot camp is kind of like a concentrated period of time that is focused on one specific thing. So again, if you think about the military analogy, of course, that's the thumbnail that we had, right, is the military helmet and goggles and all that stuff that didn't really look like me, thanks to AI. but if you think about like a military boot camp, what's the goal? The goal is to kind of get you used to a certain structure. It's to get you in shape. It's to get you used to following commands. It's to get you used to the structure of the Army or the Marines or whatever it is that you're going to that boot camp for, right? So it's a very focused, intense time that is designed to get you ready to be a part of whatever it is that you're going to be a part of. Now, if it's the Army, then it's being a part of the Army, right? So a boot camp or a coding boot camp is a very specific, short, focused time that is designed to make you, to give you all the tools necessary to make you a part of this developer community. And so that's kind of the goal. The goal is to help you go from not knowing anything about code to being able to do things, right? To build applications or to build websites or to write whatever, right? Whatever type of thing that you want to do with code. The idea is that they're going to give you the fundamental tool set that you can build on. It's more like a foundation than it is like a whole house, right? It's just kind of laying a foundation of a tool set that you can then use and that you can grow in order to become a true developer. And of course, there's kind of lots of different developers out there, and we've talked about that before. But what's interesting about boot camps is, it's a good alternative for a lot of people to something like going and getting a 4-year degree in computer science. A lot of universities still offer a computer science degree, but with that, typically you're going to have to take a lot of other classes that are not necessarily as focused on learning computer science, right? Learning how to code. You're going to have to take English classes and math classes and history classes and all these other things that don't really focus their attention on learning how to code, learning how to do this specific job. So a coding boot camp is sort of like a quasi apprenticeship. So it's not really an apprenticeship, but it's like a mix between an apprenticeship and like a college course, right? So that's basically what a boot camp is. Another interesting thing about boot camps is oftentimes they're not really offered by a school. Now there is one we'll look at here in a little bit that is from a specific school, but even if they're promoted by a school like a university, then a lot of times they actually farm out the actual management of that boot camp or that co-op or whatever they call it to a third-party company. So a lot of times, even if you're going to a state-sponsored or a school-sponsored boot camp, coding boot camp, it's oftentimes actually being run by some third-party company, some probably for-profit organization. There are some nonprofit organizations out there that are doing it, but the for-profit ones typically will probably have better teachers because they can they're doing it for profit, so they can pay a little bit better, things like that. So that's basically what a boot camp is, and how it should hopefully help you in the process of becoming a developer, moving from this junior developer and really actually becoming a junior developer by teaching you how the basics of code. What is all this stuff that you see on your screen, and how does it actually work? They're trying to basically turn you into a junior developer, and so my goal is to help you move on from that really to a successful career. But we need to talk about boot camps. All right, so that's what a coding boot camp is. Sorry, I'm tangling over my words. All right, so let's take a look at the boot camp pros first. Let's take a look at the boot camp pros. We always want to talk about the nice things before we talk about the things that we maybe don't like about something, right? So boot camp pros. One of the great things about a boot camp, a coding boot camp, is they have already laid out and generally tested a path or a plan for learning, right? One of the hardest things to do jumping into this without something like a boot camp is trying to figure out what exactly do I need to learn? What are the different things that I need to put together in my process that's going to help me get to where I want to go? And so they've done that. They've already done the work to put together a course or a plan of all the things that you need to learn and understand in order to become a junior developer, in order to get into the development world. Sorry, I like to chew my eyes. So they've got a plan already, and that's one of the nice things about these boot camps. There's a process in place. It's been used by lots of people, and so generally it's not something that they've just come up with the week before. They have a process. They have teachers who have done it, so they have some skill in this process. They have a plan to help you out, and if you don't start this journey with a plan, you're going to be in trouble, because you're just going to ping pong around and try to learn all kinds of different things and never really know oftentimes how it all actually works together, how it all fits in a way that's going to help you become the developer that you want to be. So that's one of the biggest pros of a coding boot camp. Now, the second pro to me for a coding boot camp is that generally you're dealing with real people. There are some boot camps that are just online courses. I would typically advise you stay away from those, especially if they're going to charge the same amount as they do for live training. I would almost always push you to go a live training route if you're going to go through a boot camp, and thankfully most of them are that, or they offer that. And so that's one of the benefits of a boot camp, because you need personal interaction. You need to be able to interact with somebody live when they're teaching. When I was teaching the course, anybody could raise their hand. We were doing it via Zoom because it was near the end of the COVID time, and so everything was done on Zoom, and so we were doing our class over Zoom. I was sharing things over Zoom, and I just had to raise their hand, and if they raise their hand, then I could actually interact with them. If you're doing a boot camp or some sort of other training where it's just recorded videos, it's not really going to be as beneficial to you, right? So like even watching this live stream later on is not going to be quite as beneficial to you as being able to be online with us and interact with us and ask questions at the same time. So that's one of the benefits of a boot camp, is whether it's in person or whether it's online. A lot of times it is done with people who are actually teaching you live right there. So you can raise your hand, you can ask a question, you can get help if you're struggling with something, you can talk to other people in the class and see what are some things maybe that you're missing. So there's a lot more interaction. It's not just watching videos, right? There's interaction. There's real people that are involved in this process. So you have not only a clear path, but you have real people who are helping you move forward, move down that path, and helping make sure that you're actually understanding the things that you're supposed to be learning. Um, Another nice thing about boot camps is they're pretty much everywhere. You can find a coding boot camp in most major cities. Um, like I said, in person. You can get them online. We'll see here. There's multiple that are online that pop up when you just do a quick Google search. So there's lots of different varieties of boot camps. There's lots of boot camps available to you, and there's a varying degree of expenses as well. So that can be helpful depending on where you're at from a financial standpoint. But they really are everywhere, which is again a huge pro, because back when I was starting many moons ago, I didn't have really anything other than documentation, and documentation was not as good or as easily written as it is today. We have much better tools to help us write documentation for applications and for languages and things like that now than we did back then. So being able to find a place that is hopefully affordable and provides all these benefits is really huge, and that's what coding boot camps give you. Another interesting pro of a lot of boot camps is that they're often associated either with some sort of job placement nonprofit or group, or they're associated with actual businesses who have some sort of apprentice program or some sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Intern type program that they've connected with that coding boot camp. And so that can be very beneficial if you're thinking about, how do I move from learning code to getting that first job? Well, if you're looking to get that first job and that coding boot camp has connections with a lot of different employers or with some sort of placement agency or recruiter agency, then that's a huge help. There are a lot of boot camps, especially early on, that didn't have those connections, and even many today that still don't have those connections or don't have very good ones. And so finding a boot camp that has those connections to where you can get feedback from somebody from a business. For example, we had different people from different businesses who would come to the last kind of demo day for the boot camp that I taught, and the students would demo the projects that they had worked on, and so then people could see the work that they had done, and of course they all had GitHub accounts that they could show their code and things like that as well. So that's a huge benefit of a coding boot camp. If they're connected to something like that, it can really help you with the job search. All right. So kind of connected with the job search aspect is this idea of mentoring. So having people around you, depending on the teacher, their availability, their experience, they can really kind of take another step in your learning process and become a mentor. I've talked to multiple junior developers who are still in contact with their teachers, even after the class is over, after the teacher's been paid. They're still in contact with them. They're still able to ask them questions, and they respond. It's probably not perfect or super quick, but there's still a little bit of that mentoring aspect. And again, the whole my name is Dev Mentor Dave, right? So the whole point of this channel is to help you get mentoring, help you pursue mentoring, help you see the value of mentoring. So I would be remiss if I didn't point out that boot camps do offer at least some level of mentoring in this process. They do offer some level of experience and advice to be able to help you understand a little bit better what it's going to be like to actually get out into the world and be a part of the development community and get that first job. And then the final kind of pro from a boot camp standpoint is that they are cheaper than going to college. They're not cheap, but they are definitely cheaper than going and getting a 4-year degree in computer science. They're typically, because they're more focused, they're easier to complete than a 4-year degree. Again, because they're not trying to teach you history and science and English and math and all these other things that don't necessarily apply to what you're trying to learn. They're focused just on the things that you need, the skills that you need, the knowledge that you need in order to do the job that you're looking to do, in order to be successful in your career. Whereas with a college degree, it's going to be much more difficult. A computer science degree teaches you a whole lot more than just writing code. It teaches you all kinds of stuff about, how computers work, how data is saved, how, processing, all computation, all kinds of things that I'm pulling out of thin air, based on conversations that I've had with people who have actually gone through a course like that. But they're going to teach you a lot more, and it's going to be a lot harder. And honestly, more people can get through a boot camp than they can successfully get through a 4-year computer science degree. And that's just the reality of the difference between being a computer science person and being a developer, right? You don't have to have a CS degree to be able to write code. And so it's going to cost a whole lot less in time. It's going to cost a whole lot less in money to go to a coding boot camp rather than going to a 4-year degree at a university, or even a 2-year degree at a university. I don't even know if there is a 2-year degree for something like this. There probably is. I'm sure someone's come up with something by now. Anything that makes money, right? So that statement actually brings me to, unfortunately, the cons of boot camps. The cons of boot camps. So, as with most things in life, there is a negative side. There is a dark side. If you haven't seen the videos on the dark side of software development, this is not one of the things that we talked about, but it is part of the reality, that boot camps also have a dark side. They're not perfect. There is no perfect system. I've been thinking about it for a while, and at least in my finite mind, I haven't been able to find a perfect system to meet all the different challenges that we have in the software development world. And boot camps are no exception. So what are some of those cons? The first con really to me is that there's no guarantee as to the quality of instruction that you're going to get. Again, I feel like I'm a pretty good instructor. And so I feel like those who were in my class got good value for what they were getting. Hopefully they felt the same way. I think the company that I worked for felt the same way, because they've asked me to do it, and I just haven't really had the time to do that. Even though I did enjoy it. So, but there's just no guarantee what you're going to get from a teaching standpoint. Boot camps will boast a lot of things about their quality of instructors and the experience of their instructors, and we only use professionals who have been in the workforce, who all these different things that you'll read on websites. And there's lots of developers who are really good developers, but they're not really good teachers. And unfortunately, sometimes people get put into these opportunities of teaching a boot camp, especially if it's just a recording, and they're maybe not that really that great at communicating, that good at helping people understand something, maybe not good at answering questions when they come up, and so you really are kind of at a loss as to which boot camp's going to give you the best bang for your buck when it comes to the quality of instruction. Now, you could always go try to get a bunch of reviews, talk to people who have been through boot camps themselves. You'll probably get a mixed bag, and the reason for that is because everybody learns things differently. They learn things at different speeds. They learn certain things better than they learn other things, and so everybody's experience is going to be different. So it's really hard to say, this boot camp has the best instructors over this boot camp, because how do you quantify that? And that's really hard to do without actually having sat through it yourself and experienced it yourself. So that's one con of a boot camp is there's no guarantee of the quality of instruction that you're going to get. Another problem with them is that for most of them, there is not any sort of entrance exam or qualification process. The simple reality is that not everybody should be a web developer or a software developer. It really is a skill, and it really does take certain personalities sometimes, certain abilities. And what you generally see from a marketing standpoint is that anybody can learn. You just have to have the right teacher, right? Now, I do believe that most people can learn how to write code. And again, this is where, for me, Dev Mentor Dave comes into the picture, because a lot of people can learn how to write code. They can understand how to put words together and symbols together in a file and make it do something. But that doesn't mean that they can translate that into actually doing a job full time. And it's very rare for you to find a boot camp where they give you like an entrance exam or a qualification exam to see if you're really the type of person or personality that would do this well, or that would enjoy it, or that has an aptitude for it, right? That's really what I'm looking for, an aptitude test, right? So sometimes you'll find places that will do that, and if they do that, and if they actually use it, sometimes they'll use it as a marketing ploy, unfortunately, and pretty much everybody still gets in. But if they're actually screening people with that is a huge pro. But the problem is most of them aren't, and unfortunately that gives us a con for most boot camps, is that they'll pretty much take anybody, and if you can't make it, it's mostly your fault, right? When unfortunately they could have done something to help walk you through a process that says, hey, I don't think this is really right for you. Just based off of what we've discussed, based off of this aptitude test, whatever it is, they're generally not going to take the time to do that. And part of that is because another con is the fact that it's all about marketing. It's marketing and money, because again, most of these boot camps really are not run by like schools or nonprofit organizations. They typically try to get third parties to run those classes. And so, man, it really is a profit thing. And the more people you can get into a class, the more money you make, right? So if you can fill a class with 20 people, that's great. If you can fill it with 25 people, that's better. If you're charging $10,000 per person times 20 people, that's $200,000. I mean, that's a really good profit margin right there. Maybe that's what I should be doing. No, that's not the plan. So that's a con of boot camp is there's a lot of marketing around boot camps, and because of that, they're trying to get people to come and pay for this product that they're putting out there. And that's not wrong. Marketing isn't wrong, but unfortunately they can really lead people down a wrong path, in assuming that anybody can learn to code or anybody can become a developer. And we'll kind of take a look at that here in just a few minutes. It's kind of see how they do some of that stuff. But another con is that most of the boot camps that you find today are teaching exactly the same thing. Now, if you've watched some of my other videos, you'll know that there's a lot more to becoming a web developer, for example, or a software developer, than just learning HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. There are many other languages that we use. There are different types of frameworks. There are different tools, different processes, all kinds of things that are generally outside the scope of, I would say, 95 to 99% of the boot camps that are out there. Almost every boot camp you see is going to be putting out the same type of product, right? And by that, I mean the same type of junior developers. Of course, they're all going to be at different levels because everybody learns things faster or slower. And so, but the product they're putting out, the developers, the knowledge that they're putting out is mostly the same from one boot camp to another. And that doesn't necessarily sound like a problem, but the problem is we have lots of holes and needs in the development community that are not being met by these boot camps. And so what we're actually getting is we're getting a ton of junior developers who are front end or sometimes full stack JavaScript developers, but we don't have anybody filling in the gaps of some of these other places that we really need people to join in. And so it makes it hard for junior developers to get jobs because they're all fighting for the same few jobs in that very specific narrow skill set of kind of front end or maybe full stack HTML, CSS, JavaScript development. And they're missing all these other opportunities where maybe if they went a different path from as far as a training standpoint, they might be able to get a job a little bit faster because they'll have skills that other junior developers don't have. So that's a con of boot camps. And it's one that really is more on them than anything because it's easy to teach people HTML, CSS, and basic JavaScript. And so it's easy to churn out the same product over and over and over again. And so that's a big con to me when it comes to these coding boot camps. Another con of a coding boot camp is that they're cramming a lot of information in a very small period of time. You'll see here in a second when we go look at the websites. Generally anywhere between 14 weeks and 24 weeks, some as low as 12 weeks, so 3 months. So anywhere between 3 months and 6 months. And this is generally not 8 hours a day. All right. This is, a few hours a day, not necessarily every day of the week. Like this is really a part-time class, right? Even when they call it a full-time class, it's very part-time as far as compared to if you were doing like a college degree, going to school for most of the day. And so they're trying to cram a bunch of information in a very short period of time. The problem with that is not necessarily that it's a lot of information. The problem is that for most people, the type of information that they're putting into these courses is 100% foreign. It's 100% weird and something that most of you probably have never even heard of before. You're just trying to understand what somebody is saying a lot of times, let alone how you actually use it. And so when you are taking all of this information and trying to teach somebody a markup language like HTML and a styling language like CSS and a programming language like JavaScript, and then you're trying to teach them a front-end framework like React, and then maybe some basic database commands for MySQL or for DynamoDB, and then maybe a little bit of how to set up a server in a back-end framework with Node and Express, or you're trying to cram in a lot of stuff. Plus, you're teaching them how to use the web developer tools. You're teaching them how to use VS Code. You're teaching them what in the world GitHub is. I mean, there's a good chance you're listening to this and going, I don't even know what most of those things are that you just talked about. And all of that's completely foreign to you when you go into a boot camp. And yet they're trying to cram all of this information into a few hours a week for 3 to 6 months. And on top of that, they basically tell you that by the time you're done, you should be able to go out and get a junior developer job. I'll just be real honest with you. It's a very rare person who can go through something like that and land a job quickly and feel comfortable that they know enough and that they have experienced enough to be able to do the job. That's a very rare person. That's probably a fairly gifted person, to be honest with you. Most of the devs that I've worked with, most of the junior devs I've worked with who have come out of a boot camp needed a minimum of 1 year of close mentoring, hopefully on the job. That's preferred, but at least a year of mentoring to help them get from that craziness of getting everything stuffed into their brain from 3 to 6 months to how to actually flesh that out in the real world, in a real job, doing real tasks. That's really the hard part. And that's where boot camps really fall short for me. They and I understand why. They cram everything into a small window of time because it allows them to get more people in. You can do more classes, you can make more money, you can charge less, because otherwise you'd have to charge a lot more if you're doing something for a longer period of time. So a smaller cost is going to get more people to participate. But man, 3 to 6 months just is not enough time to get almost any junior developer really where they need to be to do the job with any sort of confidence. And so that's a huge con for me. One of the reasons why I don't, boot camps are not my first step. And we'll kind of talk about that here a little bit later. The final con is, while they all are putting out kind of the same product, teaching the same basic things, there's not a whole lot of standardization in the industry as a whole. So like from a software development standpoint, I talked about this when I did a video on the different types of developers. So the different like levels of developers. There isn't really a good standardization. We talk about junior developers, mid developers, or intermediate developers, and senior developers, and those are kind of really the three distinctions that we have. There's no real standardization from a pay scale standpoint outside of that. And the same is true when it comes to teaching, right? When it comes to teaching people how to write code, teaching people what it looks like to use code, what it looks like to actually be a developer, there really is not a standard way of doing it. Every boot camp's going to do it a little differently. Generally, they're going through the same content, but the process is going to look different from class to class, even inside the same boot camp, based on the different teachers and their skill and their knowledge. So there's no standardization. Whereas with a lot of, like university courses, there's some standardization there. There's some accreditation processes for the schools and things like that. You're not typically going to get that with a boot camp. So I just want to take a few minutes and take a look at some of these coding bootcamp websites and just kind of talk you through some of the things that I see on there and that I think you should be aware of when you're actually looking at these websites. It's important to know kind of what they're talking about and maybe see some things that you might not have noticed otherwise. So this is just a quick search that I did right here. It says coding boot camps right here in the search bar. I could have done like near me or something like that, right? For beginners or some good things. I just did coding boot camps. So the first thing that you should always recognize when you're doing a search in Google, please recognize this. And this is why I'm not a huge fan of search engine optimization companies anymore either. Almost every item here at the beginning is a sponsored listing. That means it's an advertisement. All right. So every single one of these first things, except for this last one, is an advertisement for a coding bootcamp. So they're spending money to try to get us to get to their website, to fill out their information so that they can convince us to be a part of their coding bootcamp. That's, like I said, this is a huge money-making, not scheme. I mean, they're actually teaching real skills. So I'm not saying it's a scheme, but it's a real money-making prospect for them. So they're spending money on advertising. So I think it's good for us to realize that when we get into this question of should I use a boot camp to learn how to write code. So let's just take the first one here, appacademy.io. And again, I don't have any issues with any of these companies personally. I don't know. I'm not affiliated with them. I'm not against them in any specific way. I don't have an axe to grind necessarily, but I just kind of want to walk through some of these websites and so you can kind of see what they're doing, right? So change your career, change your life. You know, that's what we want to do. We want to change our career, change our life. We want to get a high paying job. If you go back here, what's the saying? Pay zero till hired, get $77,000 job. I'll just be honest with you, $77,000 is a little high in my opinion. You're probably not going to make that as a junior developer in your first job, unless they just have some really interesting connections, which they could. But you know, we'll see. Notice this one, learn to code in 12 weeks, 12-week software engineer course. This one down here, 16 weeks. So 4 months, right? So 3 months, 3 months, 4 months. But yeah, so we're wanting to change the, you know, they're pulling on heartstrings, right? We want to change our situation. They've got some nice things about them that people have said. So here's some 2019 graduates. 93% placement rate. Now that's interesting to think about. So this is their placements are based on 2019. That's something to keep an eye on. We are almost 5 years past that now. So 4 years for sure. A lot can change in 4 years. You know, the economy can tank in 4 years. The market can become saturated in 4 years. So just because in 2019 they had a 93% placement rate, that doesn't mean that is still the case today. Also, look what it says, San Francisco campus, right? Well, where's San Francisco? Well, that's right down there in, you know, the software capital of the world, right? Silicon Valley. I don't know how close they are, to be honest with you, but you know, that's the San Francisco campus right there next to where all the tech giants are hiring people, and now these days are firing people, right? So these are the things you got to watch out for, right? So now, are they saying anything that's a lie? No, but you got to, you know, look at these things and say, okay, does this make sense for me, right? Starting salary $104,000 in San Francisco, $86,900 in New York. All right, so these are very specific campuses that they're talking about here. All right, so excuse me. This is an interesting tactic. I almost said ploy. I don't mean to be mean, but this is an interesting tactic here. Pay no tuition until you're hired. Now, what that looks like typically is they're going to require a certain percentage of your salary. So they'll train you. And a lot of times with these programs, we won't take the time to dig into this, but a lot of times if you don't get a job, like within a certain time period, you owe them money, right? Because they're not doing this out of the kindness of their heart. They're doing this to make money. So the idea is you get hired and then you pay them a portion of your salary basically over a set period of time, either months or potentially even years, right? They offer online campus, part-time or full-time. So they got kind of different variety of things that you can choose from. 24 weeks. So that's at least a different period of time. We've got a 16-weeker here and a 24-week. What's the difference between full-time? I don't know. We could probably dig into that and find out. So this is interesting, right? Again, where are we getting our statistics from, right? Our statistics are coming from San Francisco campus, New York campus, right there around those places that are Google, Microsoft, Meta, Slack. You know, that's where these companies are, right? So again, is this a bad company? No, but we need to understand what's actually being said here. You know, we need to understand what's actually being sold here. And they got a little quiz to take you through. It's going to direct you to the thing that they think you should buy and be a part of. Again, they're talking about the industry professionals. These are the types of people who have given input as far as what our content should be. So this is a nice little keyword to throw in, right? Everything's AI now, so who knows how much time they actually spend on AI? I mean, you got to learn how to code first, and that takes a good chunk of time. So, I mean, the AI piece of this is probably very short introduction to AI. So they've got some other ways to interact with them. They've got some preparation courses that probably there's a free account. So they've got some ways to engage with them before you jump in and pay money. I just wonder, let's take a look at the tuition financing page. How to pay. You can pay up front. So anywhere from $17,000 to $22,000, depending on what you're trying to do. And the prep programs that we looked at, they're just on the last page, $500 to almost $4,000 for a prep class before you get into the boot camp. So something to keep in mind, $17,000 to $22,000. They offer financing. Man, I'm not just saying this because I've taught a Dave Ramsey course before, but I would not encourage anybody to finance their degree or their anything like this. So man, I just wouldn't do it. So what's interesting here is our ISA, once you've graduated and have a job earning at least $50,000. So that's a low number because they know you'll probably get that. You remember what did the ad say? The ad said get a $77,000 job, right? So, but if you're making $50,000, then you're going to start paying us back, right? So you'll begin to pay back tuition and monthly installments equal to 15% of your gross monthly income. Notice that's gross income, not net income. If you don't know the difference, so net income is the money that you actually take home after taxes, benefits, things like that are taken out. Gross is what you actually earned. And so it's 15% of your gross income, not 15% of what you actually are taking home. Something to keep in mind when you're paying that back out of $50,000. What's 15% of $50,000? Hang on, let me think about this. I'm not good at math. $50,000, 10% would be $5,000, so it'd be $7,500, right? So 15%, $7,500. You'll continue making these payments for 36 months or until you've reached ISA maximum for your program, whichever comes first. Man, that's immersive programs, $31,000 to $36,000. That's a lot of money. Wow. Okay, well, I don't want to sit here and beat up on this one any longer, but again, that's a lot of money to go through a course that, man, they're shoving a lot of information in you in 24 months, even if they do have good connections with a job. Wow. Okay, so KU, if you don't know, is University of Kansas, local-ish here to Kansas City, where I am. They're in Lawrence, Kansas. And so KU has a coding boot camp. I've actually worked with a junior developer who went through a coding boot camp at Kansas, University of Kansas, and it was pretty good actually. But I will tell you this, the feedback that I got from him and the feedback that I get from a lot of junior developers on these boot camps is I wish I could go back through it again now that I am familiar with all the terminology and things that they talked about, right? So again, that's part of the problem, shoving all this information in a small period of time. So we've got 24 weeks, flexible structure. They're going to list a bunch of skills that you're going to learn. Notice self-study topics. Again, this is a lot of stuff to try to cram into 24 weeks. And I don't know if this says schedule. Coding boot camp. Oh, that just takes us back to the same thing. That's annoying. Yeah, I'm not seeing. I'm looking for something that tells me how much time a week is actually part of this, because I don't remember. Ah, here we go. Dedicated 9 hours of scheduled in-class time per week. Okay, notice this. 9 hours of in-class time. So, let's say you've got 3 days a week that you're having class. So it's 3 hours, 3 days a week. But they're expecting you to do a minimum of 20 hours of outside class and hands-on projects and practice and work. So you're paying X amount of dollars for 9 hours a week of instruction. And then they're just going to give you projects basically to do on your own. Now, you typically have groups that you can interact with. You can ask questions, of your teachers and things like that, depending on their availability. But where's the bulk of the process here, right? The bulk of the process, double the time, is you working on your own, trying to figure stuff out. 9 hours of it really is more instruction than like mentoring, coming alongside. Now they do answer questions, which is good, right? But yeah, most of the time spent is going to be you working on your own, or maybe sometimes with a partner or something like that. So again, something to keep in mind with what you're actually paying for. I forget, did we see a price on this? I didn't see a price on this. I think this one was around 17,000. Oh, maybe FAQs. Let's try that. Oh, this is just a single page, isn't it? I don't see it. Oh well, let's move on. Now this is an interesting one. So they come out here. We got 12,000 plus hires. Placed more grads in high growth, high pay tech careers. Right. So again, what are they saying? We're gonna get you a job. Right. We're gonna get you a job. 97,000 global alumni. Now, again, what's an alumni? An alumni is somebody who's passed the course. That doesn't mean that all 97,000 of these people actually got jobs. It just means that they passed the course. That's what an alumni is, a graduate, right? 20,000 expert instructors. That's interesting to me. They must have a lot of different small locations, because it looks like we've got some in-person options here. But again, some of the same stuff that we're looking at before: front-end development, full-stack development, front-end frameworks and APIs, exploring different technologies. And there's 4 different units, and again, 12 to 24 weeks. Again, man, 3 to 6 months. It's a lot. That's a small amount of time to put all that information into your brain in a way that's usable, right? So again, almost $17,000 for this one. So this is a good chunk of money, right? This is a good chunk of money. Here's another one. This is an interesting statement that I found on this website here. Can I actually learn code in 16 weeks? Yes, of course you can. Even if you're a complete beginner, we have been perfecting our curriculum since 2012. So if you're eager to learn, study. If you're eager to learn, study software development. I'm not sure that makes sense. Anyway, yeah, of course you can learn it, right? What are they going to tell you? No, you can't learn it. Please go away. We don't want your money. Yeah, sure, you can learn it. It's not necessarily true. I don't see anything on here about giving you a test to see if you can learn it. I don't know. Coding Dojo. I just thought that was an interesting statement. Anyway, so this is another thing that you often run into. We have this switchup.org. So this is just giving us a list of other boot camps and things that are possibilities, and you can go and click on them and find information about them and reviews. So I just want to run through some of these real fast. $16,900. What are they teaching you? Full-time actualized coding bootcamp. Coding bootcamp. That's all it says. I don't know what that is. 16 weeks, 12 weeks, say 3 or 4 months. Of course, everybody's going to get high stars. That's how they sell. Learning Fuse. This one actually has several different options. UX, UI design. That's cheaper, but it's not really necessarily coding. Part-time comprehensive program. Who knows what that is. Full-time immersive 14-week program. 14 weeks is really rough. $16,000 for a 14-week program. Data science, which is not necessarily programming, but does have sometimes some coding depending on what you're doing. Clarisway, I don't know what that is. They have a lot of different things here, so they have a lot of options, multiple pages of options, but you can kind of get an idea. This looks like a company. They do a lot of stuff. My concern with that would be how much of it do they do well? Are these just pre-recorded things, available online, flexible classes, self-paced part-time or evening classes? Yeah, I don't know. So something to think about. But anyway, so there's lots and lots and lots of options. As you can see, go over here. I mean, we've got just on this page 24 options just on this one website that's probably just trying to get people to sign up so that they can get referrals. So yeah, this is the boot camp world, and this is why I'm not a huge fan of boot camps. Now again, should everybody who's teaching something be doing it for free? No. I mean, even people who give you free stuff on YouTube, right? They're not really doing it for free. They're hoping to build a following. They're hoping to get their YouTube channel to a place where it can be monetized, to where maybe they can quit their job and do that full time because they really want to do that instead. And they may also be doing it because they really want to help people. But they're even on YouTube, the goal is to get a fan base. The goal is to get people who are watching and participating, interacting, actually coming to the live streams and leaving questions and talking. So it's not that there's no such thing as a free lunch. It's just that we have to take with a grain of salt that everyone's trying to get something, right? Even me. As much as I really want to help you succeed, I'm trying to get something out of this too. I'm trying to build this YouTube channel, right? So everything that I'm doing here is not just 100% altruistic. So we need to have that understanding when we talk about boot camp. So it's not that that's wrong. It's not that that's even bad, but it is something that we need to think about and take into account when we're asking this question: should I start my journey into becoming a developer by using one of these boot camps? So again, to get back to the question from the very beginning, Dev Mentor Dave, I'm thinking about becoming a developer. Should I join a local or online boot camp or just try to learn on my own? So here's my suggestion. And again, this is my opinion based on my own learning over time, based on my experience having taught a boot camp, based on my experience mentoring junior developers who have been through a boot camp. My advice and my opinion would be this. I would start by doing some sort of self taught or YouTube taught course. You could do something like Udemy, but then again, we're just talking about that. That's going to typically cost money. I would rather you try to do something that's free. Who do you start with? Man, there's a lot of good training online on YouTube as far as doing coding. That's one of the reasons why this is not the purpose of this channel. There's so many other great YouTube channels out there that are teaching coding for free. I would start, most people, I would send them to YouTube channel called Traversy Media, and I'll put a link to that in the description after this, just so you can find some place. But you can just look it up, Traversy Media. I have used that for some things that I've wanted to learn. I've actually had my kids go through videos on that because I'm a mean dad and I'm making them learn coding. So I just feel like I really like the way that he teaches things. He's got tons and tons of content, all kinds of different things, not just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, although that is typically what I have people start with. HTML and CSS and JavaScript are probably the easiest things to pick up, which is, again, why the boot camps teach them. But there's a mini course, and I'll try to remember to put a link to that as well on the Traversy Media YouTube page, where you can go through, and he does a great job of explaining and giving examples and walking you through how you can do it. And I would sit down with a computer. Don't watch these on your phone. Sit down with a computer, watch it. If you have a separate screen, get a separate screen, put the video up, and follow along with him doing the things that he's doing. And the reason why I say start there is because coding boot camps have a lot of cons, but they also have a lot of pros, but they're also expensive. Okay. And unless you just have, $15,000 to $20,000 laying around, which if you're trying to change careers, you probably don't. But unless you have that, then you really should make sure that you want to do this as a career before you pay all that money to find out you don't really like it. Because again, these are businesses, and they're not just going to give you your money back because you decide you don't want to be a developer anymore. There are different guarantees you'll see on different websites, but generally those are locked down to make sure that you can't just back out because you don't like something. So my suggestion would be do some very basic learning through YouTube. Go to Traversy Media, check out his HTML, CSS, and JavaScript short junior developer course. Once you've gone through that, maybe go through it a couple times just to make sure you're picking up the terminology, make sure that you're understanding what you're supposed to be doing, and whether or not you like it. So if you go through all three of those videos, and certainly feel free to go through others. Like I said, he's got tons of content. There's lots of other places online on YouTube that you can find that'll give you good content as well, and tutorials to show you how to learn some of these new skills and new concepts. But if you enjoy it, and you want to continue learning, you want to continue doing it, then I would at least consider doing a boot camp. Even then, I don't feel like you need to do that. You shouldn't have to have a boot camp, but there are some good pros to boot camps, right? They have a planned process. Some of it's going to be the same stuff that you go through with Traversy Media, but it's going to be live with a person. You're going to be able to ask questions, deal with bugs and issues at that time. So there are some great pros if you've got the money to do it, or you can work out a plan to be able to pay for it. That would be a good option. Either way, whether you try to continue learning on your own through YouTube courses or maybe some cheaper courses like Udemy, I always and forever will suggest that you pursue mentoring, whether that's somebody at the boot camp, whether that's somebody that you meet online via LinkedIn or some other resource for mentoring. At the end of the day, all of those things are just going to give you knowledge. They're going to give you very little experience. They're going to give you certain things for you to copy. These tutorials give you little build apps to copy, but that's not real experience. And so they're going to be good for you, but you need a mentor to help you move from code to a successful career, right? That's why I keep saying that in all my videos, because that's really what mentors do. Mentors take you from the learning the basics. That's what the boot camp does. That's what the tutorials do. learning the basics and helping you say, okay, how do I put that into action in a way that's going to make me successful as a software developer? And so you really need to get a mentor. Whether you go a boot camp route or whether you go the route of self-training through some of these other options like YouTube and Udemy and other course companies. Laracast is another one. No matter what route you take, please get a mentor. Get somebody who's going to help walk this path with you. And if you don't know what to look for in a mentor, I've got another live stream we did early on called How to Find Your Gandalf. And so take a look at that. We walk through what to look for in a mentor, what to expect from a mentor. And so hopefully that'll be a help to you. And we've gone past the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and shut it down for tonight. Hopefully this has been a help to you and giving you some insight into boot camps, what they are, the good, the bad, and the ugly, some of the things that I think are beneficial from them, some of the things that maybe are not as beneficial or may even be a showstopper for you, depending on your different circumstances and situation. And hopefully you have at least some direction to go. Everybody's going to be different. But I think if you can afford it, a boot camp is a great place to start after you know a little bit of terminology and after you know for sure that's the direction I want to go, because that's a lot of money to spend to find out I don't really want to be a developer. So hopefully this has been a help to you. If it has, if you would hit the like button, I would appreciate that. It just helps let other people know about the channel. And if you haven't checked out some of the other videos, please take a look at some of those. And again, I'll put a link to Traversy Media down in the description here. Once I get done with the live stream, I'll send a link to his channel as well as his courses on HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And then finally, if you have not subscribed and you find this content helpful, please subscribe. Hit the bell icon to be notified the next time that we go live or upload a video, which hopefully will be Wednesday. So we'll see you all on the next one.